All right, we're going to jump into a little more 3D staging work. This is going to still include photorealistic layers and environments, which is really important because it's a really awesome way to turn a still photograph into something much more than that. It's also a great way to earn a living if you can become good at this. And there are several things you need to know how to make sure that you are dialed in, looking at detail, being super specific about understanding depth and breaking down spaces. We're going to be a little rudimentary just for the sake of getting through this project. But ultimately what we're going to do is look at how I broke this down in Photoshop. You guys have this file. We can break it down a whole lot more, and often you end up doing that. But we're going to bring it into After Effects. We're going to position this in a spatial environment and deal with, not just moving things in space, making sure that they're scaled appropriately, but then we're going to bring a camera in. And this is the first time we're going to work with a camera. And I think this is a good moment for us to sort of understand why a camera is different than a null object. So far we've only dealt with a null object. Now we're going to bring a camera in, and that'll give us a lot of different options that kind of make this super sweet. So if this is the Photoshop file that we're looking at, I have this broken down into just 4 simple layers because simple is good for instruction. The base plate. The base plate has all of the background information, the water, and even the foreground, but it doesn't matter because we're going to break this into different spaces, or actually already did for you. The missing ingredient is the boat. The boat, I came in and I dealt with a lot of masking work. If we just look at the boat by itself, it was really hard to find all of these different lines and rigging elements for a boat. So that was a lot of work to make sure that all of the sail, mast, rigging areas had the lines that they needed. Lines meaning cables and ropes, but they look like lines. So that all had to be pretty much recreated. I didn't salvage any of the really fine stuff. I had to actually just make it. And it's fine because for a shot like this, we're not looking for exact believability, but just enough to make us forget that we're looking at a photograph. Okay, so the next thing that I added was the foreground rock that's in front of the rest of the mountain range. And that is because I just saw an area where I could put a cloud back in there and help this world feel a little more believable. And lastly is the floor. And the floor is simply that. And I pulled the rulers up, Command R. Let me see the rulers, which gives you that opportunity to grab from the top ruler and pull down a guide. So I brought a guide down, and that gave me a moment to understand where an absolute horizontal horizon would be, which I could make a selection out of with just the simple marquee tool, giving me something that I can call my floor. So you put it all back together and it looks like a cohesive shot. So now if I go to After Effects, I want to import this. I'm going to bring this in. So I'm just going to double click in my workspace. I'm going to say, hey, we got this dodo boat. And this is a critical moment of making sure that you're asking yourself the right questions about how you want to import this artwork. And we have 3 options as to how to import it. Footage would purely just give me either a flat image without any of the layers, or it would ask me to choose a layer. Well, I don't want that. I want all the layers. The second option is composition, retain layer sizes. And if you recall from your other After Effects work, retaining layer sizes means that, let's just take, for example, the large background plate that is all of the mountains, all the sea, all the beach, etc., it has a certain dimension to it. And its anchor point is going to be right in the middle of it. But the boat, since it is smaller, because I cut it out, it has a different bounding box or boundary to it. So its anchor point would be in the middle of its own space. What's really important for me in a situation like this is to make sure that they all share the same anchor point space. So I am going to call this just a composition. That way the boat has its anchor point in the middle of the entire space, the background, the floor, the mountain. They all share the exact same center point based on this document's dimensions, which I can see. No, it won't tell me there, but it's pretty big. So I'm going to hit composition. I'm going to hit open. This doesn't matter right now. There's no styles here. So that gives me a composition, if I open it up, that looks just like what I saw in Photoshop. And this is where stuff gets tricky. This is where stuff gets tricky, and this is where we have to be really smart about what we're doing and making sure that we're thinking ahead about our project's setup and outcome. This file is 5,472 pixels wide. Well, that's not HD. It might be closer to like 2K or 4K or something like that, but we're not doing that. What I need to do is make sure that there's a composition set up for me that is thinking about HD dimensions. So I'm going to go to composition. I'm going to click new, and I'll call this Dodo Sail 1080. Because what I'm looking for is a document that's 1920 pixels wide by 1080 high. That is the standard preset for HD TV, 1080 2997. And this is only going to be 5 seconds long. So, bam. Now I have a composition, but it's empty, right? So all I have to do is go back to the composition that I created when I imported that Photoshop file called Dodo Boat 305. And I'm going to select all of those layers. I'm going to hit copy. I'm going to go to my new comp that I made, and I'm going to hit paste. That guarantees that all of these layers are pasted appropriately in relationship to themselves. Otherwise, if you were to drag them in from the project area, they would just sort of stack themselves up, and you would have nothing that was reminiscent of what you had originally set up in your Photoshop file. So you can grab them all right now since they're all selected and try to rearrange them. You may hit scale and scale them all down, and that's all fine right now. I'll just put them somewhere along here. Okay, something like that. Okay. But if I click on the boat, its anchor point is in the center. If I click on the floor, its anchor point is also in the center. We're going to change that. If I hit the right mountains, whatever, its anchor point in the same spot. So at least that starts to help you understand what that difference is between composition, retain layer size, and composition just plain. This is going to help us out a lot. First thing I want to do is I want to take that base plate and I want to shove it way back. Those are mountains that are just like, they're far away from where the camera is. And so then that should also be registered in what we're doing here in After Effects. None of these layers are 3D yet, so I have to turn all of them on to 3D. Boop. Okay, so they're all 3D. And then that base plate, I'm going to turn on position, hit P, and I'm going to throw it back substantially. I think I'm going to go like, I'm going to go way back. I'm going way back. Maybe 1,000? I don't know. Maybe I'll go 12. I can even click in there and say here 12. 12,000. So that's 12,000. And as we recall from previous videos, that thing's way back there and it got smaller. There's pixel information in there. We know it because it said it was like 5,000 something. So I can now open up scale. I can scale that back up. and try to get it to where it originally was, which was somewhere around here. No, actually, that's interesting. I think it's probably somewhere around there, but I'm going to open up position again, and I am going to change its X value and its Y. Just so that that front mountain kind of lines up to it. That's great. Cool. So then the right front mountain also needs to go way the heck back. So I'm going to hit P, and I'm going to hold down Shift and hit S, just so I can have scale and position up at the same time. And I can look also at what the base background was, and I set it to 12,000. That front mountain range might be like just 10,000. So I'm going to just type that in. 10. Boop, boop, boop. And now it's way back there. Can I see it? Oh yeah, sure, there it is. All right. And then scale-wise, I'm going to scale it back up. And I'm going to try to get it so that it feels right around the same. And I mean, you might have to move it around just a little tiny bit, and that's fine. But somewhere right around there. And that feels pretty great. Next is the floor. This is where we do have to interact with the anchor point. The floor itself needs to be turned into a floor. Right now it's just it's a vertical piece back there, but we want to turn it 90 degrees so that it is a floor, and it is it's going to react to a camera as far as being something that we can glide past, move beyond, or into its own sort of environment, and the change of the parallax. Things closer to you will move at a faster rate, things further away at a slower rate. So the floor, I am going to grab my pan behind tool, and I'm going to set it. You know what would be helpful is if I just saw the floor only. So I might just hit solo. So what I'm trying to do is hit that anchor point just right at its topmost pixels. Bingo, nailed it. I don't need to solo that anymore. But I do need to access its rotation. So I'm going to open up rotation, I hit R, and I'm thinking about rotating this on the X because I want it to swivel towards me. So that's going to be a negative value. So as I start to increase my negative value of X rotation, you can sort of see how this is pivoting. It's getting, you know, more of a floor. And I want a full negative 90. No problem. But it looks messed up, right? This totally looks messed up. And this is where we use a trick as far as distorting the layer's dimensions in order to fit what was originally perceived as reality. And that is an effect called corner pin, but it's found under distort corner pin. So we're going to add a corner pin, and we have to do a couple things here. If you can tell, you can sort of see the boundaries of this layer. The corner pin are these round things here. So you can grab one of those and you can extend it to those outer edges. Hold down Shift and we'll keep it proportionate as far as like a horizontal line goes. And then the ones that are on kind of the bottom, we want to try to find a way to match up what we would consider, well, this is terrible. Actually, it's fine. I'm going to put those there. And then you have to kind of Oh, you can do it. Come on, computer, don't crash. It's crashing. Did you crash? Did not crash. Oh. I had to come back and I had to reevaluate something because I totally tried to do this and it went into a disaster mode, and then my head wrapped around. Oh yeah, right. So this is one of those layers that is going to give us a little bit of a tricky situation because it does think that the bounding box is similar to the whole thing. In reality, what we're really most interested in is the layer laying down at 90 degrees. And I don't really care what the verticality is. But I need to think about its relationship with this space and where it intersects these other layers, or where it joins up with them. So right off the bat, if I was to take this layer and change its X rotation to a -90, I know that I just turned into a horizontal plane from a vertical plane. So we laid it down. So now this layer sits out here. This is a good time for me to think about different views. So if I go to view 1, which is just show me what the active camera is, let's have a look at 2 of them. And what I want to see on the left panel is something from the side. So I will choose either left or right. Well, that's really weird. It went to 4 views. No, I want you to be the right. There we go. Okay. So I'm going to zoom out a little bit. I also don't like that being just split over there. It's fine. I'm going to leave it for now. So if I zoom way out, I can start to see that I've got my base, which is the furthest one away, my right mountains that are here, and then my floor is at this 0Z, and so is my boat. So the floor is the one that I want to rotate on my X, a -90, so it's laying vertically. But I need to move that so that it is actually interacting with what that background mountain looks like. So I'm going to take its position, and I'm going to start increasing its Z value. I'm going to move it way back. It's funny. Why did it look like it's going up? I don't know what view that is, and why I have 4 views. I just want 2. So anyways, I'm gonna pop it somewhere in this area where it looks like maybe they're intersecting. I want 2 views. All right, fine. This one needs to be my active camera. Thanks. So if I select my floor, I can see that it's like this little tiny little thing over here. And it's way above where I want it, and it's super tiny. But it's at this point where I need to think about like its play in this environment. So I'm going to lower it. You can see how I lowered over here. And then I want to take my scale, and I'm going to make sure I break the link of a scale, because what I would like to do is start to expand its scale so that it feels like it's kind of like coming more toward me, which you can see there. And then I want to do the same thing with its X value. So I want to expand it. But I'm trying to do it in a way in which it feels like we're really close to what the original origins of its image were. Currently it's too tall, so I need to bring that down some more. I still need to increase its width on the X. Maybe I can pull it back up a little bit. I'm just looking at that last image and saying, how do I get to there? when it's somewhere around here. And this is one of those things where you have to go up and down, up and down, up and down. So it's going to be somewhere around here. And now we're left with the very last element, which is the boat. That's not the last element because we're going to bring clouds in. But the boat itself is still like way super up close. It needs to go live somewhere in the middle of where that floor is. So I'm going to take the boat and I'm going to hit P. And I'm going to start pushing it back in Z value. And the best part for me is to look, I'm holding down Shift again, is to look at that other graphical view that shows me where it's at in that space. So it might be like a half or closer to it. Now I need to like lower it on the Y, but then it's so far away, so I'm going to hit Shift S for scale. I'm going to scale it up. But then I can see, now I can start to see where it's cutting into it. So I have to move its Y value, and I can play with its Z value. I just want to start to see it intersect with the background. And it doesn't really go into it until it's sinking into the dirt. Well, I don't want it to sink into the dirt. I want it to go further back around here, increase its Y value. I'm going to hold down, actually I'm just going to change the shift so that the boat is the appropriate size. I'll bring it back up. So there's a lot of back and forth going on here, and that is totally fine. But it was somewhere around there. I'm feeling pretty good about that. Last thing I want to do is bring in the clouds. So I'm going to the project. I'm going to find, did I bring those in? My clouds? I didn't. Okay, images, nope. Clouds. Alpha. Bam. No, just footage, please. Thank you. So on my clouds, if I bring these clouds in, and these will be in your project file, I turned them into a 3D element. I'm going to hit P, just so I can start throwing them way back until they disappear. I know that they're somewhere back there, right? Then I have to change their Y value, their X value, until I can start to see these things. There they are. Nope, right around there. And then scale, Shift S. So I'm going to, it's too big. I'll scale those up and I'll just kind of like position them somewhere over here just for now. It's just one more element that's going to give me a little more believability. So here's the cool thing too. I can duplicate that. Command D, I'll hit P and S. And I'm going to scale it down significantly because I'm going to bring it a lot closer. Bringing this in a whole lot closer, like way closer. I have to move it so I can see it. I'll bring it down. I do want it to be behind the boat, so I just have to find the place where it ends up being behind that boat. Oh geez, it's gonna be way back there. I can see it. There it is. Bam. Scale you up. And then maybe just like move you, I don't know, maybe you're like here. You're like low floating clouds. You're on the ocean. This is a doable thing. And then I can even duplicate it again. Hit P and Shift S. And I can move this one even closer to us. We'll never know. And then move it way the heck over here. Change its scale up. Give it a little more loft just so it's in the air. And then you can do things like even change its opacity. I'll bring that opacity down just a little bit so we can sort of see through it. All right, so now I have my three-dimensional stage set up. You can see it here. Mountains, background, mountain sort of foreground. No, that's a cloud. There's the mountain foreground. Here's the next series of cloud. Here's the boat, and then the foreground cloud. And then this is the floor, which is the seabed. Not the bed, but the water line and the beach, okay? You can't tell that anything's going on here. Sure, we could at this point bring in a null and start to move things, but this is where the camera comes into play. The camera is going to take care of a lot more information. I'm going to close this movie for now. We're going to open it right back up to where we're set here, and then I'll continue with the camera. So try to get your stage set up like I did here. Make sure you look at your two different views so you can see what that staging looks like, and have it feel like a believable reinterpretation of what that original image looked like. Okay? Then we'll move into the camera.